welcome back. This is part 2 of The Roar, chapter 1. So let's just get right into the video. I hope you enjoy it. Several hours later, an old man in a suit came in and sat on the end of the bed. He was so thin, Ellie could see his skull through the papery skin on his face and every little bone in his hand. His eyes were calm and gray, and smiling a little as he told Ellie how special she was and that he'd chosen her from thousands, as if she was supposed to be pleased that he kidnapped her and cut off her hair. And when he realized she wasn't, because she threw a plate of food at his hand, a darkness emanated from his eyes, more hostile than the gulf of space separating her from her family. And when he told her that if she didn't behave herself, she would never see them again, she trembled with fear. For a year, she worked hard and tried to behave, motivated by the painful longing she felt to be with her family again, to be kissed by her mother, to feel her father's arms around her, and to sleep in the tiny bedroom she shared with her twin brother, Micah. But the day Mal Gorman told her the secret, Ellie knew he'd never intended her to go home. She could never go home with a secret like that. "I hate you, Mal Gorman," she said, "and I wish you kept your bony mouth shut." But some things he taught her were useful. At the very least, he'd given her all the skills she needed to escape him, and it had been much easier than she thought it would be. The pod fighter, as she flew, was a silver of curved black metal and glass, with the hundreds of brightly lit icons covering every surface of the cockpit. She couldn't have flown that a year ago. A year ago, she had problems finding her hairbrush. At last, a thread of light appeared in the northern horizon, which quickly morphed into the salt-licked concrete of the wall. For a moment her spirit soared. Behind the wall was her family. Behind the wall was the south coast of England and home. She was nearly home, but her happiness was quickly smothered by fear. Being so close to the people she loved made her long for them even more. Shielded by darkness, she hovered over the sea, which heaved beneath her like a black beast pitted by rain. Looking at the towering mass of concrete made her stomach tighten. The wall had been built during the animal plague, long before Ellie was born, but she had grown up hearing its story until it was as familiar to her as the ones her mother read at bedtime. But this story wasn't half as much fun as The Wind in the Willows or Winnie the Pooh, because instead of friendly animals having happy adventures, it involved insane animals on murderous rampage, animals that ripped off the doors of cars to kill the people inside. When Ellie was small, every time the wall was mentioned, she burst into tears, not because she was frightened of the animals, but because she felt sorry for them. You're not supposed to feel sorry for the animals," her mother corrected her. "You're supposed to feel sorry for the humans." "Poor bears and tigers and birds and moles," Ellie sobbed. "They're all dead. We killed them all." "Of course we did," her mother replied, exasperated. "We had to kill them before they killed us, but now we live behind the wall, so we don't have to worry about those nasty animals anymore. Now lie down and go to sleep." Ellie was good and lay down and went to sleep, but she never stopped feeling sorry for the animals. The wall was the largest man-made structure on the planet. It towered 50 feet above sea level and looped all around the top of the world, enclosing northern Europe, northern Russia, and Canada. Where the sea licked it, the concrete was rippled by the ice cream by salt, and above it was streaked by rain. Where it protected the people on land, the wall's foundations met bedrock so no burrowing animals could get under it, and on the top were 3 rows of electrified razor wire that could cut a rhino into ribbons. Every 75 feet were guard towers made by Genghis Borgs, 10 feet tall battle borgs with temperaments like wasps and laser guns powerful enough to blow a herd of elephants into biltong. Through the windshield, Ellie watched as the closest Genghis Borg swung its massive gun. In the darkness, its eyes of red looked like those of a demon. But Ellie wasn't scared of Genghis Borgs. They would never consider the possibility that she had an animal on her pod fighter, and that she was willing to take it over the wall. What scared Ellie lay beyond the wall. Gorman's men would be waiting for her on the other side, hovering over the hotels of the Brighton seafront and they would have gunners in their pod fighters, not a monkey with a bag of popcorn. She breathed deeply. You can do it. You know you can. She had a pretty good chance, she thought. If she flew via London, because she'd been able to travel through the darkness of the first level, the shadows, then she'd follow the Thames Valley flood plan to her hometown, Barford North, just south of Oxford. The new refugee towns were built on stilts to keep them above the floodwaters so she'd be able to fly under them and use them for cover. It would be very dangerous, but not many of Gorman's men would dare to follow her. She took off her headset and had a drink of water. Then, with difficulty, she undid her harness and twisted around to make sure Puck's harness was tight enough. Puck had been a birthday present from Al Gorman, or a bribe more like, she thought, to make me work harder. I bet he's regretting giving me an animal now. Everyone's going to be surprised to see you, she whispered, and absolutely terrified. She bit her lip, imagining her mother's scream when she arrived home with a live capuchin monkey, and made a mental note to get in the apartment and close the door before she revealed him. Asha was even afraid of pictures of animals. Even now, 43 years after the wall was built, there was still a huge yellow plague siren on the tallest building in every town, just in case an animal got over. Puck was their worst nightmare, but Ellie couldn't have left him behind on the spaceship alone. No way. None of this was his fault. She was relieved to see the monkey was sleeping. She smiled. He didn't look very dangerous. His bag of popcorn had spilled in his lap, and his face was peaceful, as he was too dreaming of home. She took the bag, folded over the top, and tucked it down the side of the seat. Sweet dreams, she whispered, glad he didn't know what was happening. His fingers twitched, and she touched them gently. What a miracle he was, so beautiful. Every time she looked at him, she felt her heart swell with wonder. His brown face was framed by a mist of golden fur. His arms and legs were black to the elbow, as if he dipped them in a bucket of ink. Over his body was fur. Goodness, I'm sorry. Over his body, his fur was longer and a darker shade of gold, and he had a black mohawk. A strip of tuffy black fur over the top of his head that suited him perfectly. He was Puck by the name and Puckish by nature, the most dreadful pet imaginable. But Ellie didn't blame him. She knew Puck missed his family just as much as she did hers, and the only way he could communicate his sadness was by being vicious and destructive. Poor Puck hadn't been allowed out of his tiny room for months. She had tightened his harness. They just didn't understand you, she whispered, but I do. She prepared to fly again. Her body felt weak just from the exertion of turning around in her seat, as she realized how exhausted she was. She hadn't been able to eat or sleep during the days leading up to her escape. I need to be careful and not lose concentration, she thought. But not now. Half an hour, maybe less, and I'll be home with my family. She put her headset on and wriggled back in her seat so she was comfortable. She locked her harness, checked over the control panel, and then fired up the engine, feeling waves of nervousness, energy ripple through her as it roared. The pod fighter rose vertically, and its power vibrated through her hands. The nearest Genghis board turned, and its red eyes watched as she flew over the wall and crossed the strip of sea toward land. She reached Brighton in less than a minute, and like a swarm of black flies, Gorman's men fell over the clouds. My welcome party, she whispered sarcastically. How nice of you to meet me. She felt her stomach flip with fear, but she flew toward them with gritted teeth and a lightning-quick twist and turn, shot sideways through a gap between two hotels with inches to spare. Beat that, she yelled as she came out the other side and banked quickly to avoid hitting a block of apartments. She found herself in a narrow walkway behind the hotels of the seafront. It was lined with refuse containers and parked hover cars. There were two fighters waiting for her at the end, and above she could hear a rumble of police freighter. She couldn't go up, and she couldn't go forward, so she veered sharply to the left, narrowly missing the corner of a balcony as she shot into the lightless crack between other two buildings. This is the only way, she thought. emerging in a shopping mall and immediately cutting between two stores to avoid the swarm of police pods coming towards her. She knew if she spent more than a second in an open space, they would kill her, but she had played this game before in training, weaving through the lightless maze full of ravenous monsters in a flight simulator. The only difference being when she played the maze game, she had 3 lives, but doing it for real, she only had 1. She's using the buildings for cover. Well, of course she is, Mal Gorman snapped with a force that cracked his dry lips. She's not going to fly above them, so you can all take turns at target practice. Which way is she heading? Toward London. She's going to fly through the shadows, Gorman predicted. Try to force her up into the 2nd level, where there's more light. Every man there now. That's all of chapter 1 for today. So, it's interesting so far. I've already read this book before, but it was one time. So, and I really liked it, so I'm obviously going to be reading it. And I hope you guys liked chapter 1 so far. Come back whenever I upload another video. I'm not sure when. I have school and I have family and stuff that I'm usually busy with, so whenever I post, I'm gonna post. So just subscribe if you want more, turn on the bell so you can get the notifications to hear my stories and my terrible reading. So thank you for watching this video. Goodbye.